Hey everyone, welcome back to the pursuit of being a stand-up leader. I'm Jared Whitman, and I'm here with John Russell of the Business Source. And in this podcast, we're breaking down John's book, Be a Stand-Up Leader, the ABCs of Getting the Job Done Right, chapter by chapter, having conversations based on the topic from our experiences, John's experiences, my experiences, and just having concepts and theories and conversations, and hopefully you'll pull or glean some gold nuggets from the conversation. It's a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun.
The perspectives that I'm gaining from working with you, Jared, like before we start rolling the cameras today, just to break down the subject and talk about it through my lens and talk about it from your perspective.
Yeah.
It's different.
Which is cool.
I have a certain lens, but you bring a whole nother element to it that opens up the conversation in a more dynamic way.
I think that's a cool thing about the world, right? Or life, where we all have a different perspective. And that's what makes us unique, is our perspective. So we can share information based on what we've experienced or based on what we think, based on what I think, right? And it's totally different from what you think. But that's, my perspective is one of the superpowers that makes me unique. Your perspective is
Right.
one of the superpowers that makes you unique. And we have two different perspectives that are coming together. And just the conversation, the concepting, the white page building live on, here right now it's just really cool.
Yeah.
To one, be able to have that opportunity, and two, that's where we're at in society. Is just there's a lot of different people sharing their perspectives about what they've experienced, and when people are able to connect with two people or one person and build an online relationship, then it just kind of compounds, and there's so much opportunity to extract knowledge from people having conversations.
Gain different perspectives.
Yeah.
That may be outside your views.
Yeah.
One thing I've thought about lately is the perception that we have of ourselves and what we think of who we are is totally different than what other people perceive us to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very difficult to get other people's perspectives on who you are and what you're made of when we have our own self-identity.
Yeah.
It's different. Like, you see me differently than I see me.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool that way.
Yeah. I think that I'm really hard on myself. Like I'm doing a lot of personal reflection and taking a look at all the stuff that I've done over the last year, all the stuff I'm doing right now. And I find myself looking at what I'm doing and I'm thinking it's not enough, and which is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous, because
You're already pushing pretty hard.
I'm pushing pretty hard, and I think I'm not, where I should be. However, talking with other people and hearing like you, good things that you've said and what other people are saying, is just like I have to really break that barrier, that shell that I've built up in me believing that I'm not where I need to be because I'm not working hard enough to get there. And that goes back to what you're saying about other people have different perceptions of who we are. And it's just like being open to accepting those perceptions and taking a look at like, oh yeah, I do these things. Let me cool off my hardness,
Your negativity towards yourself.
Yeah.
I believe that.
So,
well, we have about 5 or 6 different episodes we want to shoot today.
yeah, I love that we're batching.
Yeah, that's cool. It really is efficient. And you have to do that when you got all the cameras set up, you got the lights set up. You got to make the best use of your time.
Yeah.
So on the docket today, the first topic is qualifying.
Right.
And I'm talking about qualifying as it relates to sales.
Right.
Primarily.
Yeah.
But when we were getting warmed up here, we talked about the different perspectives, what does qualifying mean to you?
Right.
It's different than what it might mean to me.
Yeah, I was a little confused reading your chapter. Like, whose perspective is this from? I think you have something in there where you put in a lot of work, and we talked about this, putting in a lot of work, and then getting to the table, and having a timeline of events, and then having the customer be like, "Yeah, we don't have time for this, or we can't afford it right now." And my miscommunication, that's not the right word I want to use. Misinformation. Is that
Perception.
Misperception?
It was just a perception.
Okay, a different perception is that why would you put in all this work and then not get paid for it, or not for that?
I'll kind of spell this out from my own view as an advertising salesperson. And when you're in the advertising sales business, you're usually working from an account list. And it could be anywhere from 25 to 150 businesses that you're assigned by the company that you work for, that you need to go and make a face-to-face contact with the hopes of having a discovery meeting or a customer needs analysis conversation, so that you can ask enough questions to better understand whether or not they're a good prospect to sell advertising to.
Okay, I get that.
And so let's just say you make a cold call, you find out who the people are, you get the contact information. It's a multi-step process in terms of, you don't go to the first meeting with a client and start asking them a bunch of personal and private and professional questions that they're not really going to share with anybody, much less you.
Right.
Because ultimately what you need to find out is, do they have enough interest in doing business with you and not somebody else?
Yep.
Do they have enough time to dedicate towards an advertising campaign, which is a commitment and a long-term project?
Yep.
And do they have enough money to be able to run an advertising program and an advertising campaign that's sustainable and has enough frequency, consistency, and impact to generate the results that they're going to expect?
Okay. I was not looking at it from advertising sales perspective.
Right.
And now that you're articulating that better, I understand. I understand where you're coming from.
And so let's just say you're selling office equipment.
Yeah.
You're going out, you've never met the business owner. You walk in the door, introduce yourself. Who makes your office equipment decisions here? It could be the owner. Ultimately, they're the economic buyer.
Right.
But they're going to have to, or you're going to have to, as a salesperson, wade through the screens that are put up that prevent people from getting to the owner and having a conversation on whether or not you're ready for a new office automation equipment.
The gatekeepers.
Yeah, a lot of that. And so qualifying is a huge step in the process, because if you invest a fair amount of time in trying to develop a relationship with somebody that you think might be a good prospect, and you find out after 3 or 4 meetings through asking qualifying questions that they don't have enough interest, they don't have enough time, and they don't have enough money, or any one of the three, then you have to decide whether or not you're going to still call on them.
Right.
And that's a question.
Can we take a look at other types of qualifying prospects?
Name another example, another business.
Like, well, for my business, I look at the long game. So I'm like giving value, little hints of value, and asking inquisitive questions. And during this course of time, it takes me a while to close a prospect. But during this course of time, I'm qualifying them through value seeking information.
Like what?
Like, curses. Like what, I don't know, just what are your growth goals for
Right.
the next year?
Right. Find out if they have interest.
Right. Or I talked about 2 companies that I've closed recently over a period of 2 years of value added information.
You invested a lot of time. How much?
2 years, but I mean, it's not like
Wow.
it's.
You knew they were a good prospect. Otherwise, you wouldn't have stuck by them.
I'm
hoping for 2 years that they turn into a good client.
I'm very persistent, Sean. I'm very persistent.
Yeah, but I mean, you were just talking about how much time do you put in up front when you're not sure.
Here's the thing, though. It's like 20 minutes of, let me look at this. Oh, here's an article that might connect with this customer. I'm going to send a quick email. Hey,
sharing a resource.
I saw this email, or I saw this.
Right. Thought about you.
Yeah, I thought about you.
I've sent you those before.
Yeah. So I'm doing it over, a couple
You're
months.
working for the client.
Few check-ins.
And sharing with them things that you view important to them that you might have a common interest in.
Correct. Another thing might be an idea. So I was prospecting a roofing company. Like, hey, have you ever thought about doing a commercial that incorporated Santa Claus and talked about the importance of having a sturdy roof so that when Santa lands,
It's a great commercial.
I know. It's a cool idea. So, I mean, and then you could be a series like Santa at the beach, because, didn't have it, or Santa with
or
a broken
who's
leg.
on my roof today.
Yeah. So there's, all these different ideas or value pieces of information that could be beneficial for the client. And if I don't share them with the client, it doesn't do me any justice. And if I'm sharing it with them, then I'm continually showing up. I am being persistent. And during those emails, I could be like, hey, is there any other way I could be a better asset to your company or something like that?
So you're working for the prospect in advance of having a formal contract agreement.
Correct.
And you're building the relationship.
Yeah.
And you're earning the opportunity.
I think it's like several touch points.
That's a good example of qualifying that leads to more mutual understanding and respect and trust.
Yeah.
But let's just look at some of the questions that we'd ask if I was selling advertising.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, with new business, usually until credit is established, right, prepayment is required.
At least 50% down. And I think that's a mistake that some new entrepreneurs get into, especially when I've in my business, in the video business, where they'll do all this work and then not get a prepayment down, and then the customer either takes their crap and then leaves, and I'm like, oh my gosh, no, you don't hand over the assets. And I'm going off on a tangent here, but but
that's a real deal.
You don't hand over the assets until you have full payment.
When
a
relationship. Yeah, well, the contract generally is 50% down, 50% at the completion of the project.
Yes.
And I've been stiffed at the 50% on the completion of the project before.
Yeah.
But the first yes or no answer is, are you able to cut me a check today for half?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no,
see ya. Red
flag.
Yeah.
I got a problem here in terms of qualifying because there's a financial problem.
Right.
So, so here's another one. Is the business in a position to receive the return on investment from the services you're providing?
So when you're saying that, are you saying like the number of leads that are going to come in? Do they have?
Yeah, let's just say we're dealing with an HVAC company or a roofing contractor. And we run an ad campaign. And by gosh, it's pretty good. In fact, we got 4 or 5 calls yesterday, but we're booked out 3 weeks and we can't get to those people because we're taking care of our existing business.
Yeah.
So they're not able to receive the return on investment because they're not ready for it. They don't have enough manpower or woman power to be able to go and see that client today. because we're going to talk about now service today.
Right.
And that means drop everything and go.
Right.
And a lot of companies are like, we're booked.
Right.
3 weeks out. I've heard that I just had my snowblower fixed. And when I called the guy, I wasn't in a hurry, but he said, I can't get to you for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So he was able to get an ROI. But if I needed it yesterday,
right,
it wouldn't have gone down.
Kind of SOL.
So you got to be ready to receive the business.
Right.
And companies that are maxed out, they don't have enough employees. There's a lot of that going around right now.
I think
people are short-staffed.
I think that's been happening since the pandemic.
Yeah, you're right.
And going back to people being booked out, it's like the companies that leaned into marketing during the pandemic are really living it up right now because they showed up, and that attracts people from an employee standpoint and attracts people from a customer standpoint. But yeah, if you're not able to answer your phones, you're not able to return calls.
Can't get the equipment.
That's
another thing. Supply chain's broken, and I can't get your new tires until April.
Yeah.
Well, so you just spent a bunch of money on an ad campaign.
Right.
And we just developed a pretty impressive program, and new customers are coming your way, and you cannot serve them.
Right.
That's lost opportunity.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they don't come back. Sometimes they will. Okay, so are they ready for new business? That's what we were just talking about. Can the business deliver on the promises made in the ad campaign?
That's another one.
Sometimes they can, sometimes they can't. Depends on the business. Depends on the timing.
Well, you want to make sure that your ad campaign is built on things that you can achieve, deliver on. I know that I've worked with some ad agencies that have built out campaigns and run the campaigns with service or products that we don't even offer, like 0% finance. It's like, we don't have that.
It's terrible.
You can't do that. I fired that company.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
that's terrible.
Yeah, it was not good.
So the other thing is, do they have enough revenue to pay their bills in a timely fashion when the invoices come due? It depends on the type of business, how long they've been around. Are they a startup? Are they a new business? Is their cash flow tight? Is their payroll huge?
Yeah.
Do they have some big expenses coming up that are going to get in the way of financing the campaign or the project or whatever we're talking about? So I think it helps to have a process for qualifying.
Yeah.
And it could be very different for each business. Here's another thing that I've seen happen before. In the advertising world, there's a concept called baking on the come, which is, I'm going to invest this money with the hope and understanding that there's going to be enough future business coming in to generate enough revenue for me to pay for this.
Gotcha.
In other words, I don't have the money now, but if this ad works, I'm going to get the money in 30 or 60 days to pay you.
Sounds like an Enron move.
Then we all know in the advertising world that good advertising is not an immediate response science.
Yeah.
It's more of a branding proposition, relational versus transactional.
Yep.
And it's more of a long game where the ROI is going to come, but it might not come on the first 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days.
And I think it also depends on, the type of industry that is running the campaigns. Home service company it might not be effective until a triggering event occurs. Until a triggering event, because it's not a hot topic.
Right. And so if the sales cycle is long, and it may be 4 or 5 months before the consumer can respond to an ad that they heard today, even though you're branding and you're positioning and you're reaching out and building new relationships, you might not get a return on that investment for a period of time. And if you're counting on that to pay your bills, it's a bad formula.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So I wanted to mention that. Develop a list of qualifying questions. that are non-offensive and non-intrusive, but good enough to be able to uncover, does the person that you're talking to have enough interest, time, and money to invest in my product?
Right. I think from like a video marketing standpoint or just a marketing standpoint in my circles, when I show up to a meeting with a list of qualifying questions,
Uh-huh.
that that shows, in my experience, the prospect that I mean business, because I am asking the questions that I need to ask in order to understand where they are, so that I can decide or determine if it's going to be a good fit for what I have to offer in my business. But I've always had people seem kind of impressed with, one, the little bit of research that I do, spend 20, 30 minutes
Right.
doing research on their companies.
No problem.
And then asking questions regarding the different components of their company to help me.
Uncovering a weak spot.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Where they might not have video.
Yeah.
Or they might not have a good marketing plan.
Correct. So like, how can I ask the questions that will get answers and get them thinking about the services that I have to offer and how we might be able to come together,
and how they might be able to afford it and what is in it for them.
Right.
Because if they're like, Jared, I like your idea and I think I can afford it and I think I need it. So what does it take to get to the next step?
Right.
One of the things that you may or may not recall is when you and I started working together, I asked you a qualifying question. You probably didn't even realize it.
I don't remember that far
Right.
back. But.
So it was part of the conversation. You have a lot of conversations, right? So here was the question. Are you willing to play the long game?
Oh yeah, I do remember this.
And do this from start to finish, because most of the videographers I've worked with in the past are short timers.
Yeah.
And they want to get in and they want to get out.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm in. I'm committed. And I'm like, okay, then we can do this.
Yeah.
That was a big question.
Yeah. Well, it's
a big project.
This is a big project.
Yeah, it's not a short term.
Huge. I mean,
situation.
we're coming up on a year of
we
of
are
recording, which is this huge project. But
so
yeah.
I gotta commend you from the get go. This is where trust gets established.
Yeah.
When you begin to work with another professional, and there are certain criteria that need to be met, and promises made, promises kept, my hat's off to you, because it would be easy for you to go in a different direction in a heartbeat.
Right.
I think we both have enough appreciation for what we're doing here, and we're helping each other, but we're really trying to help other business people.
Yeah.
And so we share a common goal.
Right.
And so playing the long game is a good fit for you. It's a good fit for me, because we're in it for the long haul.
I think it's also a lot of fun.
Like, yeah, and we're learning quite a bit.
How cool is this that we get to get together every Monday, record,
pretty unusual,
have conversations, and then put it out there for people online to get value from it.
It's a commitment.
It is a commitment.
But we've made it, and I'm glad we did, because if you were unable to commit to the long haul, then we wouldn't be sitting here.
Right.
So, when you qualify prospects, just make sure that they are willing to commit to the time, which is what we were talking about,
yep,
and have the ability to invest in quality professional services. And the outcome of working with somebody like you with Whitman Media, I could almost guarantee results if you stick to the process, because it is not a short-term situation. I would advise anybody out there to write up a series of qualifying questions that are non-intrusive, trust-building, and empathetic, to make sure that you can prevent any misunderstandings going forward. It's good to have all your plans put together and have them be mutually agreed upon.
Yep.
So, do you have anything else on qualifying?
No. No.
It's not hard, but it needs to be done.
Yeah.
So thanks for being with us again today on qualifying prospects. We look forward to seeing you in our next episode.